Hi, my name is Spencer Walsh. This is my first journal entry, probably of many, and the date is September 12th, 2025. Pardon. This journal is mostly for myself, but if you're interested in any of the subjects covered today, which you can see in the bottom right, which I'll get to in a second, give it a review, because who knows, maybe something there you'd be interested in. Probably not my plans or music I like, but maybe if you like sci-fi world building or any other writing project that I might be covering, definitely give it a review. But if you don't want to, you don't have to stay. There won't be any music playing during this or any sounds that you might have to focus on. So if you're interested in listening to music on your own time, please feel free to do that. I know I like to sometimes, and it gets annoying when there's background music or anything like that. Um, my recommendation, some very cool jazz, maybe, house music, if you're feeling like this is going to be very exciting. So, thank you. On to the first slide. Oh, pardon. Today I'm going to be covering in this journal um, some sci-fi world building project that I'm doing right now, which I think is very interesting and very promising. Um, Two writing projects, one that I actually fully completed and another one that I've depreciated, which I'll get into. And then just music that is on my like playlist in Spotify because I want to keep track of my musical interests. And then just my plans, which is mostly to remind myself what I need to be doing and what I am done doing. So, um, I've been writing a sci-fi project. Not writing. I've been laying out the groundworks for it, and I've been struggling a little bit because I'm not a gardener. There's two types of world builders. It's like a concept. I don't know if it's been fully. Like, I don't know who to credit for coming up with it, but basically there's two types. There's the gardener who they just lay out stuff they want to do, and the world is kind of just a backdrop to it. And then you have the architect who lays out the foundations for everything. So, for example, a gardener might be J.K. Rowling, who didn't particularly think out the world that she was making because the characters and the exciting magic mattered a little bit more. And in comparison, you might have George R. R. Martin. Maybe he's a good one to go through. Pardon, I just moved my chair. I don't know if you heard that. Um, George R. R. Martin, he designed the entire world and a lot of houses and stuff. Maybe not perfect architect. He's still a bit of a gardener. Everyone is once in a while, right? Um, but yeah, he creates a whole world and prepares everything ahead of time. He does a lot of thinking. Um, One of my big inspirations was Stellaris. I had been playing it for quite a bit. I think I'm almost at 1,000 hours, so pretty exciting. Starship Troopers by Robert A. Heinlein. I had the pleasure of reading this book after watching the movie and was very surprised about how different both of them were. Heinlein seems to be creating a work. He created a nation that he almost wants to live in. I think. Um, it's very interesting. Rico is white. I'm pretty sure. Or no, Rico isn't white. Pardon. In the movie, he's white because it's like a propaganda film. Uh, criticizing the Nazis and stuff. One of the problems I've been finding is that I'm worried. When I was doing some research for sci-fi world building, I stumbled across. I told my friend what I was doing, and he was like, "That sounds like Stellaris Invicta." And I was like, "What is Stellaris Invicta?" That sounds like a sequel to Stellaris. And he sent me this video by this group, made by one guy. I've just been binging all their videos now. The Templin Institute, um, and they have already done something very similar. They use Stellaris as a huge community project basically to create. I watched their VODs about this and I watched everything. Pardon, I'm rambling. It's for myself, so that's okay. But they made this incredible, like very big. They did two seasons where they created their own empire, and they did all this world building and preparation, and there's a wiki for it, and there's all this cool stuff. And a lot of my early concepts for the structure of the government that I'm creating in this world building sci-fi project is being reworked because it looks like I've just been doing a one-to-one of what they were doing in the first season of Stellaris Invicta. If you don't know, which is completely okay if you don't, I'm just gonna move my mic. If you don't know, which is completely okay if you don't, um, the first season of Stellaris Invicta follows a human like a human empire that is reeling and finally entering space after a failed attempt at a military occupation by an unknown alien species. And so they're traveling the stars, and they're very xenophobic, and they're very militaristic, and they're very, well, they're a soft authoritarian power compared to maybe some other ones that you might see, you know. And that means that they're basically waging war across the stars, and they're, you have to conform to them, they're like the classic, like, authoritarian empire. And Mark, who's the lead of at the Template Institute YouTube channel, which I will be linking in the YouTube description, by the way, even admits that it was a good test ground, but it was a little generic. And that made me think that what I was making initially was also very generic. But basically, a lot of the structure and the cool things that I wanted to do were already done. So there's a lot of reworking, and so everything I say here is subject to change. Um, and again, full credit to Stellaris Invicta, because I'm very worried that I have basically almost plagiarized them, and that's not the intention at all. I think it's very cool, and I've been binging all their videos, and I heard that Mark of the Template Institute channel has been suffering from some health problems, and so I hope he recovers and he bounces back and he's able to make content that he loves, because it's very, very well made. And I hope to become even just half as inspirational a writer and a world builder as he is. So thank you. So this is the flow chart of the organization of the Sci-Fi Nation. As you can see, it is not finished. There's a lot of stuff saying add. There's 3 missing spots for the Secretariat Ministries, and the Colonial Administration section is not even finished. So, your first question, I'm actually going to go on a little side tangent here. I hate artificial intelligence. I think it is one of the most useless things, generative artificial intelligence. I think it's one of the most useless things ever. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I had used it not for any writing. I will never use it for writing, not even grammar correction. My mistakes are my own. I used it because the initial name for the big guy at the top, you'll see it says Office of the States General, which is a very cool name, I think. The original was First Marshal, and then, I fell down the rabbit hole. Stellaris Invicta, First Marshal's gone. It's got to go. It's not going to work. So I did First Admiral. But if you ever played Stellaris, you'll know that one of the leader designations or titles that you can bestow is First Admiral. And I also don't think it sounds very interesting. It doesn't sound like someone who leads a nation, right? And so I'll admit, I bulked and I asked AI, hey, what would be a good alternative? And it gave me like the dumbest names ever. Like, no matter how specific I was on, like, hey, don't make it, oh, pardon, I'm yawning. Don't make it sound like too, like, Roman or Greek or like religious-y. Um, and I can't believe a whole gallon of water was probably wasted cooling the machine that was writing this garbage to me. And I should have just gone to my friends, which is what I started doing after. Obviously, I spoke to my Dutch friend. He's very nice. Um, You'll know him if you know me, but if you don't, that's okay. I won't judge you. He's a very nice person, though. And he was talking to me. He goes, "Wow, that's really cool that you're doing this. Like, I love the flowchart idea." And I said, "Yeah, I'm struggling on the name for the office of the, dictator, like the head of state." And he goes, "Well, in the Netherlands, we had this thing called the States General, and it's still a thing, but at the time it was pretty powerful." Or, no, I'm paraphrasing, so, if anyone's watching this and they're Dutch and they know what the States General is, and maybe it's not as powerful as I'm making it out to be, go easy on me here. Um, but basically, he said that the States General would be a good name for someone who's the head of state of a nation like this, like a very militarist um, police state dictatorship kind of thing, right? And I thought, wow, I wasted maybe an hour of my life asking AI to do the job that one, I should have been doing alone in the first place, doing my own research, and two, that was answered in 5 minutes by my friend, my Dutch friend. So thank you to him. He will, if I ever write a book or do anything, he'll be in the credits as the guy who saved this project, because I was on the verge of just dumping it. So obviously you have the classic ministries here. I'm wondering if maybe I should change some of these to be like, the Agency of State Security or the Agency of Healthcare or Department of Health. The problem is I don't want this to be um, very US centric, like in aesthetic. I'm myself Canadian, and I feel like if I center that around North America, which is my worldview, it becomes less interesting. Like in Canada, ours is also called the Department of Defense. Um, I don't know. I think I'm gonna look into some East Asian aesthetics and also some African ones on how they do their naming conventions for their ministries because I'd really like to see what they get up to. You'll see, I made the Ministry of Colonial System and Sector Affairs on the right larger, as well as the Ministry of Defense. That's because those two are very large and important. I wanted to emphasize their importance to this empire. Um, and when I call them an empire, they're not an empire. That's just a little phrasing problem because I've been playing a lot of Stellaris, obviously, and that's kind of how it goes. Um, that's what they're all called. So if you hear me calling it an empire, pardon that. It's not an empire. There's no king. There's no emperor, or anything like that. But so this empire, the state values the expansion of its people. So it values, colonizing systems and creating sectors that govern large swaths of territory and administrating and terraforming and everything. It obviously values its military. It views the military as the hand which guides like a scalpel kind of thing. Like a scalpel's valuable, but so is the hand that moves it, right? Or maybe it views the Ministry of Defense maybe as the scalpel. This isn't fully completed. There's another flowchart that is nowhere near being done, and it's very ugly looking, so I haven't included it in this journal entry. Maybe I should have. That might have been a mistake. But basically, for example, Terran Intelligence Command is being changed to something else, and the Colonial Security Forces need to be moved over to Colonial Administration, or maybe in a funny little line connecting the armed forces and the Colonial Administration. My idea is that the States General is a very powerful position, and so all three of these bodies, the Armed Forces, the Civil Assembly of the Union, and the Colonial Affairs Ministry, are all fighting to for their own ideology. Obviously, the Civil Assembly wants a transfer to a standard democracy. The Terran Armed Forces want to actually empower the States General. They want to make sure that the States General stays in charge because guess what? That's how you stay strong, right? That's how you keep doing what you want to do. That's how you keep getting funding. If the Civil Assembly won, maybe you would lose funding, and then suddenly the aerospace command or the ground army of Earth is being, you know, mothballed. So that's a fun idea. And then obviously the colonial administrators, I think I want to lean on this isn't Star Trek, like aesthetically. Each person is very selfish. It's like the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, right? The Empire, everyone is selfish. Everyone is human in the most perfect way. Everyone has their own goals. Like yes, we're working for the Empire, for example, but I'm also working to get a pay increase. And that means if I can throw my buddy under the bus or my coworker under the bus so I can get that raise, good, right? We're in Star Trek, um, in a broad sense. I'm sure there's instances. Everyone's very noble because it's a post scarcity society, right? Everyone's very noble and brave, which is cool as well. I actually like Star Trek, um, and Star Wars, obviously. But I think, you know, I want the colonial administrators to be selfish, and I want them to maybe want to empower a third, like, kind of like more libertarian, or maybe a better way of putting it is more like independence focused. Like they want like a lot of authority focused on the colonial system. So maybe one of the big things is like, a fun little thing I could write or do is that, there's this pushing force for the colonial security forces, where do we focus on our duty to just protect the colonies, or do we take that goodwill with the people and assist in creating, like, destabilizing the States General and making him weaker so our colonies can do what they want to do? Because if you own a mining planet, you don't want the wealth of those minerals just to go to Earth and you get nothing, right? Very similar to the human conflict in Halo, where the rebel front and the outer colonies and the inner colonies are fighting because the outer colonies think they're being abused and the inner colonies think that they're being babies about it and all that stuff. So yeah, again, like I mentioned, I'm struggling really on adding the last few ministries, and I think once I'm finished with those, everything else will really come to me nice and easily. One of the things you might notice that is missing is a transit ministry. I thought that instead it should be a bureau in the legislative body. Like, I love the idea that this military state has almost forgotten it, that it had to become a bureau created by the democratic system, the very weak, depowered system. And so these people, in the special bureau inside the civil assembly, work with public services and the colonial affairs to create very, very extensive and powerful transit ways. And I imagine that this bureau is actually surprisingly influential and a little scary. Maybe it's like an USPIS or USPIS, which is the United States Postal Inspection Service, where they have like 100% like success rate on, maybe they have their own security forces, and it's like if you take a train and you commit a crime on that train, you will deal with this very, like, very, very effective force of security forces. And maybe that could be a fun little thing to write, like just a fun little tangent to write on. Like maybe a character in the story knows what they do because his dad or something got picked up, or his uncle, a dumb uncle, making a stupid mistake. So yeah, that would be fun. So anyways, we're gonna move on now. So this is a writing project I did just a little while ago. It's going to be linked in the description because I don't want it to take up very long. Like the one we were just on, my world building project, is probably the longest that I'll be talking about anything. Hopefully, I don't want to take too much of your time and my time when I go and rewatch this. Um, Inhimok on Twitter, I think that's how you say their name, created this very cool visual project called The Shadows of the Ancient, They have a Discord server, which I'm pretty sure is on their account still. So if you're interested, please go and join it. Give it a shot if you're ever interested in this thing, in what I'm about to pitch you. So you've probably heard of After the Ancients if you're still here, or After the End, pardon, if you're still here, which is this Crusader Kings 3 mod, and I think it was a Crusader Kings 2 mod as well, where the North America and South America revert back to the medieval ages, um, and you have to. Or, now they're all like talking about like the old like world and all this stuff, but they have no idea what it is because they're in the medieval ages. And it's the same thing here, kind of, except it's the whole world. And Inhimok is a very good writer or artist, and they wanted to make a tabletop, and so they started a Discord, and I joined that Discord, and I was they had a writing channel, and so I wrote the first thing in that server. So if you end up joining, you will find my Discord, and you can stalk me. Very fun. Um, but yeah, one of the things that they made was this one with windmills, and this was an hour before they released their Discord. They had posted this on their Twitter, and I looked at that, and I went on their Twitter and I typed "lungs of the earth" because to me, surprise surprise, it looks like, well, to me, if you're walking past that, you would hear the creaking of these great metal things that you have no idea what they are. And it would, to you, maybe, if you're a person of the medieval ages, and you're looking at these and you have no idea what they do, you might think, wow, it sounds like the earth is breathing. So it looks like a Don Quixote piece, like something that would be made for a Don Quixote story. Not a Don Quixote, but the story of Don Quixote. And anyways, um, I like the idea that this writer the writer, the guy in the middle here. It's written from his perspective a little bit, still in third person, obviously, but he's writing and he keeps seeing all these very old and haggard people walking around these great obelisks, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, don't you know that these are giants and they're going to eat you if you wake them up? Like, they're all sleeping right now. Like, you don't want to wake them up." And the old man debates him, and he goes, "No, these are the lungs of the earth. This is how she breathes." And they're both obviously wrong. These are windmills, or not windmills. These are wind turbines. They don't do that, but they don't know that. They have like it's been 600 years. They have no idea what any of this is. And so when the man says lungs of the earth, he's very polite about it, and he's very, he has fun with it with him. And the writer, um, he's confused, and so he trots his horse up and tries to give the man some water. And keep in mind, before this, I described that the sky is clear. The sky is very clear. There's no clouds in the sky, and he offers him some water. And the man, this old man, with his ribs are piercing his skin because he's so old and he's starving himself because he's walking out here and doing nothing. He goes, "No, no, keep your water, please, please. She will reward me for doing that, for convincing you, right?" Because he kind of wins the argument about what these great obelisks are. And the young rider, he looks up into the sky and he sees, wow, there are clouds clashing, and so he rides off, and that's how it ends. And I think it's one of the best writing I've done. My problem is that it's completely aimless. Am I saying that the Earth is rewarding a guy for being wrong just because he was nice about it? Well, that could be it. I think I wanted to be the first one to write in that server, so I rushed to write it. Um, and the first draft was bad. Um, I didn't even mention the fact that the skies were clear before it, so it just looked like I was writing two characters talking for nothing, with no like explanation to anything, no preamble, no nothing. Um, but it turned out good. It was a fun read. My problem is that I don't even mention the fact that he's in armor. and how that might feel on this horrible summer's day where it looks like he's in like a not a desert, but it looks like he's in like a mountain range or something. Can wind turbines even go there? The art is a little confusing. I wrote it as hard ground. My idea is that maybe these hills are barren of grass now because of like how hot it's getting or something. Weird, very weird. But yeah, I don't mention anything that the fact that the horse is also wearing something. I'm very focused on the old man's description, and I think what that does is I forget to write everything out. Like I'm missing all the cool details in this art piece. And so if I were to make it again, I think I'd redo it. Anyways, that it's also only a page. Before I move on, it's only a page, very short. Not verbose. I saw another piece in the server, and this is gonna sound very rude, maybe. I don't like when writing is overly verbose. Like they use big words because it does sound intelligent. You seem very smart, except it's not telling me anything. When you use like the word like I can't even think of a verbose word. I'd have to read it again. But I think what's that saying? Kiss, keep it simple, stupid. Do that. Do that. Use verbose wording when you want to, when you feel like you're repeating yourself. You know, I've said the word perhaps one too many times. Let me try something else. Or I've used the word state too much. Let me thesaurus.com it and figure out something else. Anyways, thank you. So on to my depreciated writing project. So I made a fun little fan fiction. This is the real embarrassing one for me. I made a depreciated writing project. I'm not going to link it. I got maybe 10 pages in, and this was like small font too. And I think I got a little disappointed with it, and I realized that it had been done already. So this was called Star Wars: The Dangerous Cold, and the art there is by Edouard Groult. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's a great artist. Please look at his Artstation. He makes some great pieces, mostly sci-fi. He has a little section dedicated to Star Wars, which is where I was introduced front to him. Um, and so yeah, I was very overambitious with this project. I wanted it to be a murder mystery. I wanted it to be a critique of the military and toying with nature, and I wanted there to be a whole thing about. Okay, well, here's the basic plot. You follow Private Cartier, the only technician who still is working on this desolate moon base, ice moon base, in the middle of nowhere. It's an Imperial intelligence base, and it's like a data center. Spies relay their information to this isolated base, and then this base stores that data and sends it away. This middleman is so out of the way that if a rebel attack were to happen, it would be one, it would be a huge waste of resources, and two, there would be no data there because they send it off right away, and then they delete the files. It's dumb. It doesn't make much sense, and I'm a little disappointed with my reasoning for why there would be an ice base or an ice moon base in the middle of nowhere. Ultimately, it could have been like a research station, and you could have gotten the same effect, which it was, and I'll get into that. This base, before the rise of the Empire, which is 14 years ago, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, uh, is owned was originally a Republic-funded research station studying fauna uh, and its response and survivability on a basically a desolate moon. Right, this moon has no life on it. It's terrible to live on. What would live on here? How would it live on here? Let's study the microbes in the water, all that jazz. The idea is that because it wasn't originally designed for military use, this base is near like an ice lake and it's in a valley. It's not well defended, um, and because it's in a low part of the planet or the moon. I'm gonna call it a planet. You're gonna get mad, but whatever. you need to like the relay tower is far away, and so it frequently requires repairs because there's no one right there to go and get it. They have vehicles at the base, and there's all this other stuff. The idea is that Imperial intelligence is like, hey, we're taking the base. You guys aren't doing research that we care about. Give us the base. You can stay, right? The researchers get to stay for maybe like 3 months, and then they're booted out, right? And then Private Cartier, like a week later, he comes to the base, and he's the fresh-faced recruit, and he's heard stories about the researchers, but he doesn't really care. Um, and then something weird happens in the opening of the story. So before we even meet Cartier, before we know anything about the base, there's a character, Private Buyer, and he's running through the snow. And the way I'm describing it is he's freaking out, like he has no idea what's behind him. Like he hears it behind him, like he can feel it, and his suit, like his cold weather gear, is ripped. He can like he knows he's hurt, but the cold is basically like it's almost like freezing the part that hurts so much that he can hardly feel it. And he hears, "Hey, stop!" But he doesn't stop because he's trying to get back to the base. Like he can't stop right now. And then boom, he's shot dead immediately. He drops to the ground. He's thinking, "Oh my God! Like I'm dying. This is so unfair." And as his vision is fading, he sees two stormtroopers standing over him. Bayer is an army trooper, and these two stormtroopers are a part of the ISB or Imperial, not ISB, the Imperial Intelligence's slow transition to getting rid of the army trooper guys and instead having uh, Imperial stormtroopers there. Because I like to imagine that the way it goes is that the Imperial Army is, you know, for a brief period it almost phases out the stormtrooper corps, but then stormtroopers become way more popular again, and suddenly they're everywhere, and that's why you see them everywhere because the Imperial Army becomes less and less relevant. Similar to like how the Navy and the Army were, or I think it was just the Army, were pretty underfunded until the Korean War, where people realized, oh, we still need an army because we can't just nuke everything. The U.S. Army, pardon. So, anyways, um, and then it jumps to Cartier, and it's like a day after, and he's going through his things. He has a corporal, or a lance corporal that he's buddies with, who complains all the time, and he's fat. Not Cartier. Cartier is cool, I think. And then his sergeant's chill, but he's pretty serious and stern. And then he finally, there's a base call, and it's like, hey, Bayer's dead, and there's another problem. The relay tower is damaged. We need to send Cartier and another guy out, and also Bayer had a squad mate with him or a teammate with him, and we have no idea where that guy is. So what happened? We're gonna send out a search party, but first we want Cartier, and we want him to take his fire team partner and go and repair the relay tower. So take the speeders in the base and go and do it. So, they go, and the speeder storage is a disconnected part of the base. My idea is that it's disconnected because they don't want to heat up the room, and so it's like a garage but without a door to get to the garage, right? And so they open it, and they're like, "Holy shit! The speeders are destroyed. Someone fucking went through." Pardon my language. I won't swear for the rest of the video. I'm very sorry about that. Someone went through and just destroyed, like it looks like it's gotten smashed. And Giles, Lance Corporal Giles, who's his buddy, is like, dude, like he's like in denial. He's like, man, don't worry about it. Like we'll go to the shed where they keep the fuel and they keep the maintenance supplies, and we'll just repair the things. It probably was a maintenance thing. The dude who is missing was the last guy who was in the room. Like it was in the maintenance bay for the speeders. So that's like, wow, why didn't he clean up, right? The Giles and Cartier go to the fuel depot, and guess what? All the fuel is destroyed. Like it looks like someone's taken um, a knife and has carved open every single barrel themselves. Um, And obviously some are just opened and dipped over or whatever, because, like, who has time for all that? And also, all the stuff to repair the speeders is missing. Like, no idea where it is. Like, whatever, right? And that's where I finished writing. I was struggling and I wasn't really having a good time. And if you can tell by my tone, I was a little disappointed with the work. At the same time, I had gone onto Edouard Groult's Artstation because my buddy was talking about a piece that he really liked. It was a Star Wars piece. And I saw this one and I was like, hey, isn't that. Um, well, first off, the lady in that picture looks like my mom, and she's always talking about the lady that she looks like, and it's the woman from Alien, and I'm forgetting her name, and I feel like such an uncultured pig because she's so influential. I want to say Sigourney Weaver, and I feel like that's wrong. If I'm wrong, whatever. Sigourney Weaver. Let's say that one. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And Grim Snow is basically it's a mix between The Thing and Alien. If you couldn't tell by her being there. And it's basically the plot that I was going for. A squad goes out into the wilderness of this cold ice planet and gets picked off one by one until a final showdown, which ends in an inconclusive, fate for our POV character. Um, and then I also rewatched The Thing pretty recently. I love The Thing, and I think I subconsciously had been plagiarizing The Thing in the overarching plot. You might be wondering, what are you talking about? Like, Spencer, it doesn't sound like you're plagiarizing The Thing. It sounds like you couldn't come up with, like, any interesting plot, though, right? It's like, yeah, I know. But the idea was that, um, what is it? The stormtroopers, the army guys, and the Imperial Intelligence guys realize that the base has no fuel anymore. They have to go out to the relay tower and repair it collectively. Um, I think I was gonna make it so that way, like, they realize that there's dangers out there, and they realize they have no idea what it is, and they're worried that it's a rebel attack, and so they move as a group, turning off power to the base because they can't waste the fuel, the very low fuel that they have, to go to the relay tower, request resupply, as well as send out their data, um, and then return to the base and go on like low fuel and like a single room or whatever to try and survive. Um, and they get picked off one by these mysterious things in the snow. It's like there shouldn't be life on this planet. What's killing us? Turns out the scientists, um, in an act of defiance, kind of, I guess, or maybe incompetence, an accident, or maybe Imperial Intelligence just released them thinking that they would die out there. There are these Vask wolves. If you look up VASK wolves on Wikipedia, you'll find them. Not much about them. There are these but basically, these genetically modified wolves are capable of surviving in the snow and have been sustaining themselves off of like something out there. Like we have no idea what it is. That's the great mystery of this. And that's what killed Bayer, or almost killed Bayer, and that's what killed Noakes. Noakes is the guy. I have to change the name, because I realized that it's the dude from Dexter just now. I was like, what a cool name, and I just realized. And I'm not even gonna finish this project, so I don't really care. I don't know why I'm saying I have to change the name, but they get picked off, and then, um, you know, they discover that Noakes died at a body pit. The Imperials didn't release or just send home their researchers. They couldn't do that because what if the researchers mention that there's a secret base in the middle of nowhere? So what happened? Well, Imperial Intelligence and the Stormtrooper Corps killed all of the researchers, right? And then the Imperial Army guys realize this, and it turns into a whole thing. But this big standoff is ruined when these wolves come out of nowhere and start killing people, right? Great plot. Couldn't figure out how I even wanted to get into it. They couldn't figure out how I wanted it to end. Couldn't figure out anything. And then I realized Grim Snow. Oh my god, like this is basically half of my plot already, and also The Thing, which is incredible. If you haven't seen it. I just gave up. And another problem I have is that my house is very small. I still live with my mother. A little embarrassing, but I'm only 20 and poor, very poor. Um, and I have a grandmother, and I have a cat and a dog, and my family is very loud, and they like to talk a lot, which I love. I love a busy and loud and moving house. Problem is, if I'm trying to focus, I can't. I just can't focus. I couldn't think of anything. I had to ask my family to go to bed a little early tonight so I could actually record this as well, so I could think and speak and finish the slideshow. So, anyways, yes, that is over ambition on my end, potential plagiarism, even if unintentional, and pretty bad conditions. So, thank you. That's the end of me talking about writing. So, if you're interested in anything else, or maybe you just want to see how this ends, stick around and stay along as I wrap this up. So, this is my liked music of the month. Um, it's a big list. There's some old stuff, some new stuff, some middle stuff. Blur at the bottom there was my most recent addition this month. I like this song. I'm not afraid to like it. I think it's catchy, and I've heard it for a very long time. Keep in mind, a lot of these songs I've heard many, many times before, and I've only just added to my liked songs because I want to hear them more. Rudolph Francis um, created this album, Mission, in 2021, I'm pretty sure. A Soda System work. I'm pretty sure the album is generally talking about the plight of the victims of slavery and oppression. And it's a very beautiful album, and I especially like that song. It's so catchy, it's so positive, but the message is very sad. I'm quite sure how. I might be wrong because I've only really been listening to this stuff while I work, so maybe I'm not getting it right. But what I'm thinking is that this guy is going to these people and he's saying, "Hey, the system that we're living in right now, it doesn't work," and these guys just pat him on the shoulder and go, "Oh no, the system works just fine." "Find Me, Love Me" by We. Can't remember. Haven't heard it recently. I added to my liked 4 weeks ago. No idea, dude. The Sweet Escape by Gwen Stefani, featuring Akon, is a great one. I actually didn't know this. Gwen Stefani wanted this to be a rap song first. She got into the studio expecting it to be a rap song. Akon was already there, and it had a doo-wop beat, and so Gwen Stefani was told by Akon to do like a little more like doo-wop, doo-wop. In the Shadow of the Valley, um, if you don't know, from Fallout New Vegas. I was singing it once while I was working, unloading bags, and I was like, wow, very good. Que luz e esa. I don't speak Spanish. I almost said French. French. That would have been bad. But yeah, Que luz e esa. Give it a listen. You might recognize it. If you do, I was a kid too, once. Me as a baby. This is Love Song by Sarah Burials? Probably Burials. She's white. It can't be that complex of a name. Is she? She looks white in that little album cover. I'm not gonna write you a love song. I heard it while I was working. There, it was playing on the work speakers. I've heard it many, many times before, and I realized I have never disliked listening to this song. So I just added it to the playlist. I was like, I like this song. It puts me in a good mood. It's catchy. It has everything going for it. It's great. Made in Japan by Buck Owens. My girlfriend sent me a TikTok. The song sounded beautiful. I liked it a lot. Added. But for Love by Eddie Arnold. I did a song radio for Made in Japan because I wanted to listen to more songs like that. Nice good country, classic country. But for Love, great little guitar going on at the start. Eddie Arnold has a great voice. A little bit of a sadder sounding song to me. Sir, This Is a Cutthroat something. The original song is good. I was not in the mood for it. This is like, it's called but it's the best part or something like that. This edit by made by this guy named Underdog. It's just the part that's like a little more calm. I like the dude's voice. I just don't want to hear the screaming. I don't want to accidentally skip into a like song while I'm in the car and then I hear some guy screaming. Poster Boy by Too Hollis. If you know Too Hollis, this is his most listened song, and I think it's probably his best work. It's very catchy. Um, I think it's indicative of me coming to a change with this kind of. Is it experimental underground? What is Too Hollis? Coming to terms with this, whatever Too Hollis is and his genre being really good, and I need to give it more of a listen to. So that's my journal for this. So before I close this out, my plans this month, I want to finish the flowchart. So the next journal entry should include a finished flowchart, and then I'm hoping to. What is it? I want to. Just a second. What is it? I want to get started on a bit more writing. I really enjoyed writing that one story, even if I started ragging on it, my Lungs of the Earth story. I enjoyed writing it. I was inspired by Karen Travis's writing style. I started reading the Kilo 5 trilogy. Really good, by the way. You have to give it a listen. If you like Halo, even if you don't like Halo, it's some of Travis's best work, I think. She's one of my favorite authoresses. Don't be sexist. Why am I being sexist? And so, she's a great author, very talented. I love her writing style, so I want to emulate it. I don't want to copy her, but I like her writing style. It reminds me of the way I write. I used to write when I was very, very young, um, but formatted actually well, as if the author actually knows what they want to do, unlike me who did not know what I want to do. So yeah, I want to do another small writing thing. I think I'm gonna make it on the world building. I struggle writing sci-fi because I don't really know a lot about space and I don't know a lot about war. Um, so that's what I'll be trying to do. So thank you for watching and listening to this. Um, this was made very late. Maybe it's very early for you though, or maybe it's the middle of the day. Make sure to drink some water and stay safe out there. All right. Thank you. Good night.